1,000 years of work, and you're willing to see it all end here abruptly on this strange planet.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if this is your first time. This is the monthly wrap-up for September. So what I'll do is I'll talk about what I've read, and I'll talk about what I've put on the channel, and actually today I'm going to talk about what I'm going to read as well. So I've already done a video about October because I talked about the Spooky Shorts idea, and I talked about the Occult Detective October event, but I think it'd be nice to do it again, so I'm going to talk about that at the end. But what have I read this month? It's been an interesting month in September. It's now October, but it's been an interesting month because I read a book that I really wanted to read for a long time, and I finally thought, no, I'm going to do it. And it kind of dominated the month because it's almost 500 pages, so it's a big one for me. Plus, term started in September, so I always get really tired. And I've had lots and lots of nights where I've just fallen asleep in the evening and not done any reading. So reading's definitely slower in September for me. It's definitely a month where I don't do as much reading. So anyway, the one I was talking about, the big book that I was dying to read, I finally got around to it, was Children of Memory by Adrian Tchaikovsky. So this is the third part of a trilogy that started with Children of Time. I've already done a video about Children of Time on my channel. It's one of the earliest videos I did, actually. And I absolutely love that book. I will talk about this book in more detail when I'm going to want to do a video about all three. But yeah, I did like this book a lot. But it wasn't as good as Children of Time. But I think that's a little bit of a high bar to get to anyway. But it's very interesting. And he clearly went in a different direction to the other two books. And yeah, it's a very strange twist ending, which I'm not really sure. I liked it, but I'm not really sure I like every aspect of it. But anyway, I'll do a bigger video on this when I talk about all three books. But let me know if you've read this. This is my sixth Tchaikovsky book. The sixth book I've read by Adrian Tchaikovsky. And yeah, the first book I read was Children of Time, Knocked Me for Six. And it really, Children of Time is incredible. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and it's a very interesting and creative book. So Children of Memory was a chunker for me in a month that is always a slow reading month. So it did take me the entire month. And the only reason why I finished it was because I'd got so far and I wanted to talk about it in a more decisive way in this monthly wrap up. But I was reading something else as well, which I'll get to in a minute. So there was that. And then, as I was reading that, I read a few other things through the month, so I wasn't just reading that. And the first thing I read as an alternative to that was Chokehold. Now, Chokehold is by Christoph Faust. It's part of the Hard Case Crime series. And I've discovered this one thanks to Criminoli mentioning it, Ollie from Criminoli. And I've always got the Hard Case Crime books on my radar. I've got 26, no, I haven't, sorry, I've got 30 of those books now because I've bought a few more. So I've got 30 of those books now. And I think they're really interesting as an imprint. And this is by far the best one I've read in the series. And I think it's one of the best books I've read for ages. It was utterly gripping. I will give you a trigger warning though, that it's very, very graphic. So the plot is about a porn actress who gets involved with an MMA fighter, and she's on the run, and he ends up being on the run, and they're knee deep in loads of violent threat, and is very, very sexually explicit sometimes. But it's brilliantly written. I couldn't put it down. I really, it was a real thrill ride. It was a fantastic book. So Chokehold, if you think you can handle the graphic sex and the sexual violence and the tone of the book being what you might expect from a very frank depiction of those kind of characters, then read it because it's so good. It was really, really good. So yeah, that was a real surprise. I thought it might be a bit of fun, but it was really gripping. Yeah, it was really, really good thriller. So Chokehold was read as a little sidestep from Children of Memory while I was reading that. And I also read Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. And this is the first one I've read by her. And I've had it in my collection for quite a while. And I thought this was absolutely fantastic. So I have done a review of this on my channel since then, which I'll get to in a minute. I'll talk about what I put on the channel. But I've thoroughly recommended this, and I'm really pleased to have finally read it. It was really good. So is it just to kind of give you a little kind of hint at what it is. It's kind of a feminist rallying call based around the life of a woman called Keiko who works in a convenience store and loves the convenience store, doesn't want to meet these expectations that everyone has for her to be a more productive woman. And it's just so brilliantly written. So yeah, definitely recommend it. So I found a story in here that I'd heard about, and I was curious about it, and I thought, well, let's see where it is, see if I've got an anthology with the story in it. And I did. I looked it up on the speculative fiction database thing, and it's a story by James Blish called Common Time. So I read that, a short story, as part of Shorty September, actually. So I read that as part. Well, both of these were kind of trying to give a nod to Shorty September, and I read a short story as well, again as a little bit of a distraction from Children of Memory, but as a nod to Shorty September, which is a really cool event. Which I'll link the details of that event below as well, because Past Storytime and Heather have created this really cool event. So I will sort of put the prompts down below in case you're tempted for next year. But Common Time by James Blish. It's a funny story because I was curious because it's a story that James Blish wrote because he was commissioned to write a story based on this picture. And this picture inspired him to basically write a science fiction story that is a huge metaphor for sex, the sexual act. And it's a bizarre thing to decide to do from that picture, but that's what he decided to do. But I read it, and I think if I hadn't known before, then I definitely wouldn't have spotted it. For me, the references, the metaphorical references, are so subtle that I wouldn't have noticed, and it was just an okay story. But what makes it curious is that this story is supposedly a metaphor for sex. So yeah, bit of a bizarre story. It's like a kind of a very short space opera kind of thing. But yeah, James Blish, Common Time. I also read a graphic novel version of The Lottery by Shirley Jackson. So Shirley Jackson's The Lottery is a phenomenal story. It's very disturbing. It's classic. It's kind of a much celebrated story. And this is a graphic novel version that's really interesting. It's beautifully drawn. There's a real eerie atmosphere to it. And I was really impressed with it. I think it's really good. And it's actually made by her grandson, which I think is really interesting as well. So her grandson decided to do a graphic novel version of The Lottery. So if you know The Lottery, you'll probably know what an intense and iconic story it is. But it was interesting reading this version that I just found randomly, and I got it. And yeah, it's done by her grandson. Really interesting. So The Lottery, I read that. And the other thing I read, or started to read, was this. So Vengeful is a book that I was buddy reading with Dave from Brook Blaver, Dave and Olive from Brook Blaver, and Chaz from the Bookish Chaz. And Chaz has already finished it, and Dave had to stop it because he's doing other things and he can't get it sorted. You can't get it finished, and I haven't finished it yet. So it's really good though. I'm really enjoying it. I think at the moment it's better than the original Vicious, which was another book I reviewed way back on my channel. So I think it was the second video I ever put on the sort of booktube side of my channel. So Vicious is a really good book, but this is better, I think, so far. So yeah, Vengeful, really interesting sequel by Vicky Schwab that I'm in the middle of, but Chaz has finished it. So he's already talked about it on his channel. I watched that today. So hi to Chaz, hi to Dave. So that's what I've been reading. So just before I talk about what I've put on the channel, I'll tell you what I intend to read next month. So it's Occult Detective October. So I will be reading a lot of that kind of thing. So I will be reading the Occult Detective magazine. This is the latest one, the Mythos special. So shout out to Dave, the editor of that. He'll be on our Is This Thing On soon as well. So because it's Occult Detective October, we're going to have him on the show. So that's really cool. He's got to sort his technical stuff out. I'm also going to read hopefully two more Rivers of London books. So I like the Rivers of London books, and this is 6, I think, maybe 6 or 7. I can't remember, but these are the next ones I need to read anyway. So I'll be reading some of that as well. Dave did send me a box. I don't know if you saw this video where I unboxed something that Dave sent me, and there's a load of horror fiction in these magazines. So I'm going to read some of this as well. So that's kind of like a nod to Dave, but also it fits with something else that I wanted to deal with in October, which was something called Spooky Shorts, which is a little tribute to Scott from the Bookish Bryants. And I wanted to sort of honour Horror Mayhem by giving a nod to Scott and doing short fiction with a horror tinge in October. That's what I wanted to do, so that would be for that. And also, I have a John Connolly short story book here, which will fit with the Occult Detective October as well. So I don't think I mentioned that in the announcement I did about the Occult Detective October. So I will be reading that as well, so bits of it. And a couple of other things that I'm intending to have a look at. So I'm going to try and read Earthlings, which is the other Asako Murata book. So if it's anywhere near as good as the other one, then clearly it's going to be great. And I'd like to delve back into Swords Against Death. So I intend to reread all of the Fritz Lieber Swords books. And I had a great time reading the first one, Swords Against Deviltry. This is the second one. I'm in the middle of this, so I've got that far. But it's interesting because I stopped because I realised they're short stories. Doesn't matter. I don't have to read them all at once. So that's what I intend to read. That's what I have read. I'll quickly go over what I've done on the channel. If there's anything I say that you go, oh, I haven't seen that, that kind of sounds curious, then please have a little delve. So I started off the month with a video going through my Mad magazines. So it's something that I wanted to do for a while, and because it was the summer, I thought I could do that. So I filmed me going through the Mad magazines and talking about why I like them. There was lots of illustrations. Yeah, I'm not in the video at all. It's just the magazines. So I did that. Then I put up a video from the Times Effect set at Victoria's Festival. So it's 3 songs from our family band, Times Effect, which you can hear the wind in the video. So it's not a perfect recording, but I was quite proud of what everyone else did really in the set as much as what I did. So it was nice to share it with you guys. Then I did a video that was a response video to Kim from Middle of the Book March, which is about gendered reading. So Kim did a video about whether or not she reads more female authors or male authors, and she was just sort of wrestling with it a bit. And I thought, well, I'll do a similar kind of video. So I found that kind of an interesting thing to do. So I did one just called Gendered Reading. Then I did a film review of the new Beetlejuice film, which I loved, but I talked about that for a bit. I talked about Tim Burton for a bit. Then one of the Panic Poetry videos that I put up this time was my own poem, so I did that as well. And I like to do that for PAX, so now and again there'll be a poetry video come up for PAX. Part of this banned books project, I did a review of Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian by Sherman Alexie, which I thought was a really good book. But I talked about that on the channel, a book that I wouldn't have read if it wasn't for the challenge. I did a video called Our Short Stories Commercial. So this was a response to the Harlan Ellison Greatest Hits release, and the fact that his stuff is so celebrated but pretty much out of print. And I thought it was just an interesting thing to think about, whether or not, if you're a short story writer, you're not going to get the same kind of shelf space as a novel writer. So I did a video where I sort of wrestled with that a bit. Then I did a video which was a response video to a video I saw, a new channel I just discovered from Nerdy Cathy, and that was about when to DNF. I hadn't actually done a video where I just talked about DNFing. I've done videos where there's been tags and there's been prompts about DNFing, but I've never done a video where I've just talked about that. So I did that, which I thought was an interesting thing to do. Then I talked about the Occult Detective October. I always get muddled up. Occult Detective October, and I did the unboxing with this lovely box I got from Dave. So again, thanks Dave for that. And I talked about the event, and I talked about Spooky Shorts as well. That was the second time I'd mentioned it, so this is the third time I mentioned Spooky Shorts. So I really do want to honour that with some short stories, some short horror stories for Scott this month. Then I did the evolution of a booktuber tag, which had a really nice response, actually. People were shocked by my thumbnail with my long hair, and some people talked about my COVID beard, which was very big, and my drumming and that kind of stuff. So that was a nice kind of video to put up. And it was an interesting tag that Jack from Spread Book Joy created. So that was really lovely. So I did that, evolution of a booktuber tag. Then I did my review of Convenience Store Woman. Then I did a video talking about the Read What You Own challenge. So I am going to do the Read What You Own challenge, but I'm going to do it in a block of time rather than a number of books. So I talked about why I'm doing it that way and my successes or failures in the past. So that was announcing the Read What You Own challenge and my involvement with it. Then I put up part 9 of my deep dive into the Twilight Zone. So that's a video that has got Agnes Moorehead as the thumbnail in an absolutely amazing episode. That one, I think it's called The Invaders, but that's a fantastic episode. But yeah, I talked about 6 more episodes in part 9 of the Twilight Zone deep dive. Then I had my part 2 of the Vote for the King. And I can tell you now, I can reveal that the winner of the Vote for the King this time round, after The Long Walk was the first time, this one is Eyes of the Dragon. So I'll be reading Eyes of the Dragon next as my next Stephen King book. So I'll hopefully get that stuck into October. But certainly that's the next Stephen King book I'm going to read. Then I did a video that possibly looked like it came out of left field, which was a video about Bertrand Russell, because he's a man that sometimes when I look through my book collection, it's like, oh, it'd be nice to do a video on that kind of thing. So I thought, actually, let's talk about Bertrand Russell for a bit. So I did that one. So if you're curious about Bertrand Russell, an interesting man, philosopher, commentator, writer. And then I did, just to finish off before this one came up, was another video on Doctor Who. So this was about the 2 first Dalek stories that William Hartnell was in, the first Doctor. So I'm just going to very gently do a few videos on Doctor Who. I'm not going to go too mad on it. But if you're interested in that, then there's those as well. So, yeah, I didn't read some of the short stuff I'd got from the library, and like things like the Everyone versus Racism book I got from the library, and the Jim Thompson book I got that I bought, and a few other bits like that. So I had those things out of the library and bought for Shorty September. I didn't get to read those, but I did read quite a lot, considering it's usually such a tough month for me. So there we are. That's where I've been. That's what I've read. Let me know below what you think of those things. Thanks for watching so much, and thanks for the support, and stay curious, everybody.